Welcome, everyone. We have already everything with Neil Denham. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, Emerson.
If you have any questions, you can type the question. You can raise your hand and Neil will call you. You can also type your questions in YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're looking. And there's Victoria. Hello, Victoria. And Neil, go ahead, please. And I'm going to hide myself now.
Great, yeah, great, thank you. Well, yeah, hi everyone, and nice to be here after a month off. I guess really just to say something about this meeting and the kind of the setup a little bit, I suppose, about what goes on in this meeting, and that this meeting is purely descriptive. So there's no teaching, there's no path to follow. There's no traditions as such, no kind of list of requirements or even any suggestion as to what one should do or not do. This message in that sense is actually completely neutral. It's not going anywhere. It's energetic in a way. You could say that this message is energetic. We could also say that this is a sharing about the end of an apparent illusion. So the illusion is that there is someone speaking. The illusion is that there is someone listening. The illusion is that there is something to get from this. The illusion is that there is something else or somewhere else where something can happen. The illusion is that something needs to change or even be different in any way. You could kind of say that the illusion is that there is an illusion that needs to end or be seen through. That's the illusion. The illusion is that there is an illusion. So we can talk about that, we can have a dialogue, we can ask questions, but really what's happening with the questions is really that's what's longed for, because what's longed for is already everything. So it's what's longed for asking questions to what's longed for. It's what's longed for asking what's longed for. Where do I find what's longed for? It's freedom asking freedom. How do I find freedom? It's home asking home. How do I find home? How do I stop feeling lost? And that's really what we're talking about. It's that there is a lived experience which comes in within this, which is whole and complete naturally already itself, which says this isn't whole and complete, this isn't home, something's lost, something's missing, and I need to find it. That's the illusion, that there is an I to find something, to find home. In the end, really what's being pointed to is the revelation that there was never anyone to leave or to become lost. So if people want to come on and speak to me live or type a question about this in the chat, then please do, and I'll respond. So a question in the chat, what is truth? I think truth is something that the individual's looking for, or that the me is looking for. So the illusion is usually looking for a truth, something to align with, that the truth is something to be found that's going to uncover what it feels is missing or what it feels it needs. So the truth, really, there isn't a truth. There's no suggestion in this meeting that what's being shared here is a truth or is about being true in some way. Yeah. What is reality? Well, there is no reality. There's just what appears. So with the arising of the individual, with that apparent contracted energy, it seems to make everything into something real. It seems to create, in a way, its own reality. You could say it's an artificial reality. It's a reality where there is indeed a reality, that there are things and that they have a reality. They have their own reality. So in a way, reality is a relationship that the individual or the person, so that sense to be someone, is having with the appearance. This is real. I experience myself as being real, or of being present, or of being here. So that must mean that this is a reality for me. So it seems to sort of almost in a way project that real sense of realness, that I am real, into the appearance, which has no actual reality, and making it into something solid as a reality, that this is a reality in some way, or that there is indeed another reality, or that there is indeed an artificial reality or a natural reality. That's just not the case at all. There's just what appears, which actually has no reality at all. It's not unreal, but it has no actuality at all. It has no substance. It has no solidity to it. It has no weight. It's just an appearance which is infinitely empty, which is also infinitely full. Neil, have you heard of Zen koans? What is the sound of one hand clapping, etc.? Your thoughts on Zen koans? Do you really want me to do it? Sound of one hand clapping. I like some of the old Zen koans. Basho. I can't remember it. It's a haiku, so I can't remember it word for word. It's the frog sits at the side of the pond and jumps in. The sound of water. Great. I like that kind of thing. But I think really the old Zen koans, they were designed to appeal to the mind in a way, but they were designed to kind of confuse the mind. And I think the intention really with some of the Zen koans, to the best of my understanding, could be completely wrong, is to in some way, if we can write something that in some way baffles the mind, then that may give the opportunity for the mind to sort of part or step aside so that something else, can be revealed in a way, which of course is just a part of the dream. But I think some of the old Zen koans, they can just be a natural expression, just can be, a natural expression of the natural reality in a way. And I think some of those older Zen koans probably come a lot closer to what's being shared here than a lot of more kind of neo teachings, that kind of thing. And the next question is, what is this? This is what is and isn't, which can't be known or can't be described, because it is and isn't. So we can't say what this is, because it doesn't have that actuality. It doesn't have context. It is unknowable. So there's no way to say what's meant by this, because it's unknowable. It's ungraspable. So there's no way to get a hold of it and then present it. That would be a knowing, which would then obviously become a teaching from a perspective of an understanding about something called non-duality, so-called non-duality, or about something called liberation, which of course is the dream, that the so-called liberation or so-called non-duality can be known, that it's something that can be experienced, that it's a state of some kind, or that it's a conceptual understanding of some kind. And ends up just going round and round in circles. The mind can never grasp what's being shared because there actually isn't a mind. So we can't say what this is. I could say it's everything being nothing, but no one knows it. I could say it's the natural reality, but no one knows it. I could say it's what becomes apparent with the end of the illusion to be someone, that there is separation, but no one knows it, because there's no one left, apparently, to know it. If the individual isn't real, how do they arise? It doesn't. The illusion is that there is an illusion, that there is an individual to die or to fall away, or that something needs to happen. This is home. This is what's longed for. What's longed for can even appear to be an illusion. There's nothing that isn't what's longed for. And that's, in a way, and this is a difficulty when how we use words when talking about this. In a way, what's revealed in the end, so to speak, the revelation is that there was never a person to die or to fall away. There was never anyone to become liberated. This does not need to become free, because it is already unconditionally, unknowably, ungraspably free already. Even the experience which feels trapped or not free is that freedom appearing to be that experience. It's so free, it can even appear as an experience of not being free. So the next question, Jim Newman says, this is everything. Does that mean that everything that could exist already exists? Well, nothing really exists. Apparently, there's just what appears. So nothing has any real existence. So the me never has a real existence. So they're with the apparent end of the me, or the end of that experience, or the end of that illusion, it's not a recognition of any kind that the me was here and then it's gone. It's actually, unbelievably, that it was never there in the first place. Nice with the one hand clapping, haha. I thought everyone knew that. Do you experience boredom? No. There are, this doesn't have any quality, so to say quality would be the wrong word, but really there are some things that just because anything can appear doesn't necessarily mean that it does appear. And boredom just seems to be one of those things that doesn't really appear. Boredom was really something that seemed to happen in the illusion to be some. Yeah, there's no one to be bored. Having said that, there may be that an energy arises, which comes out as, wouldn't it be nice? It's a beautiful day. Wouldn't it be nice to go and have a walk along the river? Sure. It's not coming out of a sense of I am bored, or, oh no, I need to do something because I'm going to get bored, or I'm getting. That just doesn't seem to happen. The next question, Stark. Can this be known in any way? Absolutely not. No. So the me is the knower. Lives in a world of knowing. The me, or the individual, the apparent me or individual. Let's just assume the word apparent before every verb and noun, shall we? The individual, it lives in its own reality in a way. And it is a reality of knowing. But it's an assumed knowing, it's a claiming. That knowing is actually a claiming of the appearance as happening to someone, or happening to a center, or to a position. And then what seems to happen when there is that sense to be someone, or a position here, is that then arises that sense of separation. With the rising of here, there then becomes there. I am here, the appearance is everything else which is there. Okay, or somehow outside of this body in a way. So the individual is then, in a way, seeking to have a better relationship with the appearance. And it does that through knowing, because the me as being the knower, it's kind of like currency for the seeker, knowing. And it's security. The more I can know, the more I can add to myself, the more secure this separate position will feel in some way. So this is totally unknowable. Is this nothing appearing as everything. Yes, in a way, but again, that's it's just a term, you know. We can't say what this is. It's completely unknowable. So yes, we can say nothing being everything, and that does seem to get closer. Those words do seem to be closer, but again, it's just indescribable. And another question: is already being home synonymous with the natural reality? Yes, in a way. But I understand. So, okay, so it's easy to say, you know, here, this is already home. And even that sense of being separate is home appearing as that sense of being separate. That seems obvious here. But I understand that that's not the experience for the person, for the individual. So the individual can only really feel that because it is real, that it in some way needs to end or stop happening, for this to be the natural reality in a way. But actually, again, what's revealed in the end is there is no artificial reality. There is only the natural reality appearing exactly as it's appearing. But the individual just can't see that. And William has his hand up.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, William, how you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. And you?
Good, yeah, good, thanks.
Nice. I've got a couple of. I had one question. I've got one first that's come up because you were saying when someone was talking about knowing, and you were saying about the individual thinks through more knowing, it'll become more secure.
Yeah.
So it's only the individual that lives in the need for security, would you say?
Yes, you could say that the body has needs, i.e., food, shelter. That's so, but the individual really is just a great big energetic ball of insecurity. Yeah,
and that's why it's seeking to pull in more, because it wants to feel more and more secure. And
yeah, well, in a way, yes. I mean, the seeking comes out of the sense of being separate, of the sense of separation. And the symptoms, if you like, of that sense of separation is a need, okay, or a sense that something has been lost, which then engenders a need to find something, find that which it feels has been lost, that which it feels it needs in order to make this home or make this feel more natural in some way, or to make this in some way easier. Yeah.
And when there's no longer that sense of self happening, and you said about the body has needs like food, shelter, like warmth, stuff like that. Apparently. I don't even get what apparently means.
Yeah.
Good. So then the body still apparently eats and lives in a building and stuff like that.
Mm.
That's not motivated from, it's not motivated from the need of the individual of trying to make something happen or get somewhere.
No, that sense to be someone is also the sense that something needs to be found in order to make this in some way fulfilled. So for the individual, then eating food would be a way to look for fulfillment in some way.
Especially in my case. But so the other question I was going to ask was about agendas, and how obviously, like, at least in my case, and I think in most cases that I see, the individual in relationships with other people, everything seems to be motivated by an agenda to get their needs met.
Yeah.
And I find myself and other people struggle in certain relationships with certain people. Does that purely come out of the struggling in relationships? Is that purely out of needing to get an agenda met?
Yeah, in a way. I think really the individual just seems to be a complicating factor to everything, because it has needs, because it's insecure, because it has because it lives and moves in the story of itself, because it has an internal narrative about how things should look or how things should be. So it's seeking to find that in relationships. I need you to make this okay for me in some way. So that adds a complicating factor to it. Yeah.
And then when the sense of self, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that the individual will use relationships as another way to see, to find what's longed for. If I can have enough love, if she or he will accept me, then I'll feel whole, I'll feel fulfilled, I'll feel complete.
And that's why there's so much thought going into what should I say, how should I approach this conversation and stuff like that, because it's always about making sure that, well, not having a negative outcome, but also making sure the agenda gets met.
Yeah, the needs are met. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so when the sense of self apparently falls away, then obviously there's not relating to another person, but interacting with other people, there's not this whole anxiety going into it about, will this go well for me? Will this go badly?
No, because there are no other people. So when I died, so to speak, so did you. When there is an individual, it assumes that there are other individuals having the same experience, which within the dream, of course, is the case in most cases. But when we say there is no one, it's not just that there is no one here, that there's no one here and there is no one there. There are no others, so there are no people. So there's actually no sense of the sense of having to live in relation to others in that way. So no, it just doesn't happen. That internal narrative just seems to be part of what falls away. How am I going to get my needs met from this?
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Neil.
Thanks, William. And another message in the chat, been waiting for this live stream for a while. Somehow it feels nice to listen to you. You should do more of these talks and live streams. Thank you. You have a nice way of speaking about it. So thank you very much. And question, the understanding is that there is no understanding. Well, understanding that there's no understanding is still an understanding, I'm afraid. There's no one to understand or to not understand. So I used to be a part of groups that used to do kind of self-inquiry. You know, they were sort of discussion groups, and you could kind of sit and do some self-inquiry, and in a way you could kind of see that the sense of being a someone was never solid. It was always seemed to be changing in a way, or that the me or the I, the person, was in kind of superficial. But that's just a conceptual understanding. So there could be a conceptual understanding that, yes, there's no real person, a philosophy in a way. But that's very different to that end of that kind of lived experience, the apparent end of that lived experience of being a someone, of being here, of being real. And ultimately, that's not an understanding. It's the end of an apparent understanding, which was never understanding anything. So there's never an understanding. No one really knows that they are a someone. Also, what is your sun sign? I've no idea. I don't know what I've heard of star signs. I've never heard of sun sign. Hi, Neil. Can you talk about sense of location in the body? So the sense of location seems to come up with a contracted energy in the body. There's an apparent contraction in the body. I mean, all there is boundless energy, unconditionally free energy. But that energy can appear as being contracted and gives the sense of having a position here. And that's sort of in the body. And I say sort of because actually out of that contraction comes this artificial reality in a way. And that reality is the alpha and omega. So that position becomes, or center, becomes the alpha and omega. So in a way, that contraction appears in everything else as well. Makes everything else into something solid and into something real. It has to be made into something solid and real so that it can be known. It has to be something known so that it can be claimed and owned. So it can be that that contracted energy can dissolve or just fall away. And then what apparently happens is that sense of solidity and realness in everything else also just isn't there anymore. William's got his hand up. Hi, William.
Just for a change.
Yeah.
A couple more questions came up.
Sure.
One is, wherever I find myself, like whatever I'm doing, whether it's washing the dishes or like in this meeting now, I'll be doing whatever I'm doing and my mind's going, what other situations do I need to deal with? So as soon as it's over, I can deal with them. And when there's no longer the sense of self happening, is there any idea that there's all these situations that I need to be dealing with and get through this as quickly as I can to deal with whatever I think might go wrong?
I mean, there might be, but that would just be what's appearing. Wouldn't have any kind of actuality, wouldn't have any kind of substance to it. But that, I would say that sort of, it sounds to me, well, what I'm sensing, what you're is describing a kind of neuroticism in a way about what's appearing or what's apparently going to happen next. Then that neuroticism just sort of falls away. This is very immediate. It's always whole and always immediate. And so that's obviously not to say that there can't be thoughts about maybe something after the meeting. But that doesn't really, that sort of neurotic energy that seems to sort of latch onto everything that appears or apparently appears. But the other thing is about for the individual, because it experiences itself as being real, the other part to that illusion is that it is moving somewhere or going somewhere. And that there is actually an after the meeting. There isn't actually a real after the meeting. This is what's happening.
Yeah, I think that difference that you were saying about between the neuroticism and then just the thought is what I'm describing is the neuroticism, because it becomes very, very tense. Like, what if this is going to happen? I need to deal with this, or I need to get that done. And really, they're things that don't require that much energy to go into it, but it is neurotic. And I think, like you said, there isn't a real after the meeting because the individual thinks something really is going to happen. Yeah.
But having said that, I went to the supermarket this morning and I made a list of things that I'm going to eat for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, of course. There's no sense of a person doing that. That's just what apparently happens. But it is actually the same there. That's what happens when you, so to speak, go to the shop. When William goes to the shop, that's exactly the same thing. There's just claiming of that appearance as, this is happening to me, which can then even become, amazingly, I'm doing this, or I am making this happen.
I think the problem with that I'm doing it is that it makes attention about, I need to get it right. It needs to go perfectly. I need to make sure it happens exactly as it should happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I think causes like the neurotic tension about it.
Yeah, you froze there for a minute, but I think
I said the idea that this needs to go right, or I need to make sure this happens perfectly, or I have to make sure it goes as it should go. Yeah. I think that's what creates the neurotic tension.
Well, it's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
Responsibility is the key. Yeah,
I think anyone would be neurotic if they were really responsible for the appearance. But I'm sure we've said this before, but the individual really, with what comes with that center or position, is that I am the center of the universe, or I am God in a way. I'm pulling all the strings, I'm pushing all the buttons. And if it wasn't for me being here, then the strings wouldn't be pulled, the buttons wouldn't be pushed. But there is no one, there's no strings being pulled, there's no buttons being pushed. Everything is apparently doing itself. in a way.
Well, this is the thing. 'Cause the second question I was going to ask you comes down to that thing of responsibility, which is, I think I'm responsible for solving everyone else's problem. Well, people in my life that I care about, I feel I'm responsible to solve their problem for them. And I know intellectually, like, firstly, it's not my responsibility, and secondly, a lot of the problems I think other people have are me. They might tell me something and I'm exaggerating, like, oh, this is really serious, I need to do something about this for them. And that's more of the same thing of the individual thinking, if it doesn't get it right, the appearance will go wrong.
Well, the experience for the individual is that everything arises, including people, within its field of being, awareness, if you like. Yeah, so everything arises within my awareness, and that awareness it's a knowing and a claiming. So when apparent people arise with their apparent problems, then when they are arising to the individual, they are arising within the awareness of the individual, which is a knowing and a claiming. That is the dualistic dream. So then other people and their problems then become a reality because they are appearing in my awareness. So this has something to do with me. So of course, when there is no me, which there isn't already, there's just no reality to what is appearing in that way. That's not to say there wouldn't be a helping someone or a family member or helping dad to mow the lawn. Why not? Sure, of course.
I think I realized while you were saying that was, for me, when I didn't realize this before, it's just when you were saying that, if somebody, somebody says they've got a problem, I might exaggerate and think this is the end of the world. I think if I can help them solve it.
Well, that's because you think you've got a world. You think there is a world to end.
Yeah. But also what it is I think if I can help them solve this, it makes me a good person and they'll like me and think I'm a good person. If I can't solve it, I'm a bad person, I'm inadequate.
Yeah, so there's like, as your first question, there is an agenda. Yeah. The problem for the individual, he thinks there is an actual reality within which these things are happening and that they mean something. This is completely without meaning. I don't like to say the word meaningless because that implies that it had some meaning in the first place. It is without meaning. It is without direction or purpose. Everything is just apparently being done or doing itself, not by someone or something. There's nothing behind this, a source or creator that's making everything happen. It's just itself, ungraspably, unknowably itself, appearing to happen.
And that's incomprehensible to the individual who thinks that everything does mean something.
Well, how could you know that? How could anyone or something know that? How could it know the infinite as appearing relative?
Yeah, it's impossible. And the other thing I just thought of, I'll ask if it's all right. You said before when we were on the phone one time that this is the last thing the individual wants to hear. People knew what was being said here. They wouldn't be able to turn off their Zoom any faster. And I flip-flop, which I'm sure like all individuals will. This like earlier on when I was talking to you in the week on Wednesday, and I was saying this is awful. This message is horrendous. It's awful. And then I just went into a really bad state towards the end of the week where it was just like, it felt like all hope was going and I couldn't find any fulfillment and all of that. And it just felt horrendous. But then I had the online retreat on the weekend with Jim, which was incredible. And towards the end of the Sunday, I was feeling light. I was laughing a lot. And I just thought, this message is incredible. Soon I'm not going to be a me and everything's going to be amazing. And it's just a constant flip-flopping.
Hope. We talk about this a lot. Hope. Being hopeless isn't the problem for the individual. The problem for the individual is hope. It lives in the hope of something else or other. Hope is always somewhere else. Hope can never be this. And just to say, yes, it's an awful message. I can't think of anything more offensive to, so to speak, say to someone. They're not real.
So that whole dance between I hate this message, it's awful, and this is incredible, soon I'm not going to be a me. That's just a dancing between feeling, oh my God, there's no hope, and then feeling, yes, there's hope.
Well, it's awful for the individual, but but isn't that so the apparent journey of the individual? Periods of hopelessness, and then, oh no, I've got hope again, and oh no, that hope didn't get me anywhere. Oh no, it's all hopeless again. Oh, I found some hope. I can get some hope out of it. Oh no, it didn't work. It's all hopeless.
I think that does perfectly describe my journey prior to this message. But I feel with listening to this over the last, say, 13 months, it seems to be amplified, like on steroids, like the feeling of hope, like, yes, I'm nearly there, and then the absolute despair. It's always been like that, but not as exaggerated.
Well, this feels like a big gamble for the individual. It's betting everything, because it's, in a way, betting itself. In a way, that's just a story. There's no individual, but it's a big gamble, isn't it? What if it's not okay? What if I die and it's not okay? Who's going to pull all the strings and push all the buttons?
Would you say that with this message, because it points out the experience of the individual and the futility of the seeking and blah, 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 it can be recognized what that experience of the individual is on a more amplified scale?
Sorry, say that one again.
So, I mean, basically, because like this message, like, just completely undermines energetically the experience of being an individual and points out the futility of the seeking and really exposes the nature of the individual for what it is.
Yep.
And so because of that energetic threat, let's just say, would you say that can then amplify the experience of being an individual, so the neurosis can get even more heightened?
Yeah, it can do. Yeah.
Feelings of grief could get even more heightened and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, part of what this message seems to do is to expose our illusion. Yeah, so within that, it's not real, but within that, it seems to expose some of the symptoms of that illusion and how that feels to the person who feels they are a person. Yeah, and that's very confronting. Of course it is, which is why I say, it is for the individual. This is an awful message. Yeah. If this was a teaching or about a person speaking to a person from that illusory perspective, then it would be about trying to feel better and giving hope to each other. I would feel more hopeful by giving you some hope, and you would feel more hopeful by me giving you some hope. And everyone's going to feel more hopeful, and that's going to bring about a better experience. And maybe that's where I'm going to find what's longed for.
It's both. It's incredible and scary, because I can feel relief talking to you now, and I feel also panicking.
Yeah, I also think this is an inspiring conversation, or it's inspirational. It's not inspiring someone, but it's an inspirational conversation, which is in a way the same thing as the resonance. There is a resonance. There can be, as I said in the beginning, what's happening now is home sensing or resonating with the sense of home. There isn't a William speaking to a Neil about something called home. It's home apparently speaking to home about home.
Yeah.
It's like water asking water what it's like to be wet.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, William. I think we're onto this one now. Question. Knowing is the beginning of the need to know, and counterintuitively, it's unknowing that is the end of the need to know. Yeah. But do you see, there's no real end of the need to know. Unknowing is all there is already. And that's where this message can begin to sound a bit paradoxical, when to say the means are knowing, and then say in the same sentence, all there is unknowing, there isn't a knowing. It's an oxymoron. But that seems to be unavoidable, which is why this message is nothing to do with the words whatsoever. It's nothing to do with anything really, but this is, you could say that this is just an energy. So I think home can sort of get a sense of home in a way in these meetings. But that has nothing to do with the apparent individual. So. Question, but for the illusion to function, there must be separation, otherwise you wouldn't respond to your given name. So that's just what's apparently happening. There isn't an illusion to function. Me claims everything for itself, including an apparent name. No one's ever answered to their name. There isn't someone there answering to a name. There is just the answering to a name, and then a claiming of the answering to the name as, this is my name, I am answering to this name. And a question, after there was no longer a sense of there being a Neil, was there a period of grieving for the apparent loss of Neil? And was there a substantial period of adjustment to the apparent shift? No, there wasn't a grieving for the loss of Neil, because again, what's revealed in the end is there isn't a Neil to lose. So no, there's no sense of loss or a grieving for Neil, because there never was a Neil to grieve for or to lose. There was some reflection on the years spent seeking, I have to say, and I sort of touched on it a little bit in the book that I wrote, already everything, in a way. I don't really go into much depth or detail. But there was a kind of a reflecting back on all the years that had been spent looking for it when it was always here. So, wow, oh my God, how convincing the illusion was, is. How convincing is the illusion that there is an illusion? So yes, there was a reflecting, I would say, in a way. But no, there was no sense of grieving for me. And was there a substantial period of adjustment to the apparent shift? There seems to be a kind of, this is just a story, a kind of natural adjusting. So here it was a bit of a shock when the apparent me was gone. It was a bit of a shock. It's just so alive. But I think that's more about the sort of the contrast from going from being within the dream, and within the dream, of course, the dream is experienced as being real, to there no longer being a dream. Then yes, there was a kind of a seeming contrast, and it does seem that over a period of so-called time, I suppose, there is no one adjusting to it, but it just becomes the normality, I want to say, but that's not really the right word in a way. It just seems to be, it's just how it is. It's ungraspably free, unknowable, apparent functioning, which is also ungraspable freedom, appearing as an apparent functioning, going to work, buying food, hanging out with friends. It's all unconditional unknowableness, just appearing as those things. And it always is. It's the end of an experience that says, this isn't what's longed for. It's the end of an experience, apparent liberation, so-called liberation, is the end of an experience which feels like this isn't free. This isn't liberation. Liberation never actually happens. Freedom never actually happens, because it is already freedom and already itself. I'll read one more question to the chat, and then someone has their hand up. Are there things that still make you mad? Well, no, there's no one here being made mad, but anger can happen if that's what you're asking. Yeah, of course. And oh, okay, that's a message. William's got his hand up. If anyone else wants to come on and ask a question, then just put your hand up on Zoom. I'll be able to see that. If not, one of the other facilitators should be able to see your hand raised, I think.
So basically, the individual is just the experience that something needs to happen.
Yeah.
And this message basically says that nothing needs to happen. This is already everything.
Because there isn't an individual.
Because there isn't an individual. So when there's no individual, there's nothing that needs to happen. It's only for the individual that things need to happen.
Well, because the individual lives in its own reality, like we were saying earlier, makes everything into something real. Apparent time is real. So therefore, apparent things are real. So the experience of the individual is I have to move myself into or towards what's longed for in some way.
And even nobody's...
It's the need for something to happen. So what comes out of that sense of separation is the need for something to happen, because it lives in that apparent reality of there being real happenings.
And even in these meetings, like obviously I can't know what, because we've said on the phone, I can't know what the tension of the individual is until it falls away, how pervasive it is. But even in these meetings, like, well, just now, I'm feeling so much tension. Like I need this to answer my longing. Like I mean, I feel relief already, and however long it's been going on for, 45 minutes or so. And I feel a lot of relief. And I'm like, this just has to get me to the final point, because I'm not there yet.
It's hopeless. Because
And
this is already.
And so the hopelessness is that the place the individual thinks it's going to get to when everything's okay doesn't exist.
Well, it's this. This isn't what the individual wants, but this is home.
So it's like home, but it's empty because there's no one in it.
It's just home, apparently.
And no matter how many times I tell myself, this is home, this is it, there's nowhere else, it's not to be known that this is home.
No, no one knows.
It doesn't require, someone to experience.
Yeah. So no one has an experience of coming home. So in a way, home is all there is, but home is never found. Home is the end of an experience which says, this isn't.
This is challenging. So in your book, when you wrote about, it's like being on a long drive.
Oh, yeah.
With the annoying passenger next to you, talking the whole way through the journey, and you are completely exhausted, and then it's like coming home and sinking into a warm bed. And
yeah, that's misleading a bit, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, well, no one was at the end of that having an experience of, thank God the journey's over.
No, there's a sort of a relief at the end. You know, in the same way that if you'd had a headache or you'd been ill, had a period of illness for a few days, and then you wake up one morning and it's gone. So there would, in the same way, there would be a relief.
But then there's no living in the story for ages, like, oh, I'm so glad the headache's over.
Yeah. There's no person that's feeling relieved or being relieved. Yeah. Yeah, seeking for most apparent individuals is not a pleasant experience. I think what the individual will try and do is, because the individual feels has having a relationship with everything that appears, it also has to try and have a relationship with seeking. So it will try and come up with ways to make, it's not too bad. And actually, seeking is actually quite beautiful when you think about to. But that was certainly never the experience here when there wasn't an experience to be. So never felt pleasant, that need, that longing.
The thing is, I think because the seeking is, I can say the seeking's awful and horrendous because just before I started listening to this message regularly, there was a strong recognition that it was no matter how much I got, it would never be enough to fulfill that sense of lack. And there was just desperation. So obviously I can say the seeking's awful, but for the bulk of the seeking, even though there were a lot of lows and it was intense of a struggle, for the most of it, I didn't realize how awful it was because I was in that delusion that it's going to pay off. Like it felt like it was working. I'm not quite there yet, but I'll get there at some point. So it never felt as bad as on reflection it really was. But now, I mean, obviously.
Well, it's hope. The individual constantly lives in hope. It can't not live in hope. And as I said before, hope is always somewhere else. Hope to find something that the individual feels is missing. And there's nothing else to miss.
And so this message doesn't take hope away because there already isn't any, but to the individual, it feels like the hope's being taken away. Yeah,
I mean, this message has no intention to take hope away. But yeah, this is why the individual will never resonate with this message, because it does live in hope. And the message is it's completely hopeless. It's completely hopeless because there is already no one who needs to find anything.
Thanks again, Neil.
Thank you, William. And Eugene, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, hi, Neil.
Hi, Eugene.
Oh, you did answer. I was wondering because there's no one there. But anyway.
There's no one there either, by the way.
Okay. I'm just thinking, like, I'd like to talk about levels.
Okay.
Because there is the story and there is the realization that there's no one here. Because, you know, you have certain feelings about certain people like your mother or your father, and you have a history with them. And that doesn't go away from the realization that there's no one there. You wouldn't treat a stranger on the street the same as you would treat your mother on Mother's Day.
Mm.
So I'm just thinking that there still are differences, and looking for a goal, like when you're driving your car, you would push on your brakes because you know the consequences of what would happen to the individual. And I think if you're in an abusive relationship, I'm sure there would be some stories spinning in your head saying, this isn't really healthy, I should get out of it, or
sure.
Or sometimes
you're missing the point. There's already no one that any of that you're describing is happening to.
Okay, but then seeking, on my point, and being neurotic about seeking, and you're dropping the seeking at your point in the dream, there really is no difference anyway then between
but there isn't a dream, you see. There isn't a dream to end.
Okay, but what is that sense?
So the dream is that there is a dream.
But who's dreaming?
And that there is a difference to the dream and to what is.
There's no difference between the dream and what is?
The dream is what is appearing as a dream.
Okay.
So there's you talked about all of these things, but there is already no one doing any of those things. So no one has ever got into an abusive relationship. No one has ever come out of an abusive relationship. No one's ever driven a car. No one's ever gone to work or paid their taxes.
So no one has feelings. What do feelings mean without stories? I would think that there would be a rock or something.
Well, the story would be that feelings are happening to someone. that these are my feelings. There would be an ownership of the feelings, that these are my feelings. And that seems to be a sort of a complicating factor in a way. Feelings are just naturally feelings. No one has feelings.
Okay. But if someone were to drive a nail through my hand,
Yeah,
Where-
there'd be
where-
pain.
yes, whether
Yeah, but that wouldn't be your pain.
Okay.
That would just be pain.
But you wouldn't be feeling the pain.
Well, there is no one or no person to feel the pain. It's just pain.
Right. But as an individual, if I had a headache, I'd reach for a paracetamol. Whereas,
Yeah, but there isn't an individual. So no one's ever had a headache or reached for the paracetamol. So this is for paracetamol when there's a headache.
okay, so I'm
No
not
one
talking.
does it.
I'm not talking to Neil. I'm not talking to Neil.
Well, there isn't a Neil, and there isn't a Eugene either.
And this isn't a meeting.
Well, apparently it is, but there's no one in it.
Okay, but in the dream, is anything useful?
Absolutely not, no, because there isn't an actual dream. The dream is that there is a dream. The dream is that there is a person
Okay,
something is happening to.
all right. But at the same time, you have certain skills that I don't have. And there's a reason for me being at these meetings, however frustrating and neurotic this is. There must be, at the same time, there's a pleasantness of me showing up every time to these crazy meetings.
That's just how the experience seems to be to the individual, that coming to a meeting is important in some way, or that it's meaningful in some way. This apparent meeting has no meaning whatsoever.
Okay. I guess, it's hard for me to think that there's no use.
Impossible. Yeah, absolutely impossible.
I mean, if I couldn't cook and you could cook, you could show me how to scramble an egg and
Sure.
cook. And
I might burn your frying pans.
all right, but that's still better than what I can do.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's useful
Yeah,
for the individual.
absolutely not. There isn't an individual. No one's ever scrambled eggs.
Well,
Unthinkable. It's totally unthinkable.
Okay.
For that experience,
Yeah.
for that apparent experience, it's completely unthinkable that anything would happen at all without the apparent presence of the person. This is completely empty. There's no one in it. And there's nothing special about this. It's exactly the same there.
Okay. All right. But it sure seems like everybody else is playing the woohoo, playing the I'm better than you, or
Oh, okay. I don't know who you're talking about.
I don't know. I see differences. You do see differences. You must see differences between a red light and a green light.
Sure. Apparently.
Okay, but that apparently.
Well, the brain. Okay. I mean, if we want to, it's a story really, but yes, the brain recognizes red and green lights. The brain knows how to drive. The brain knows how to scramble eggs.
Right.
So it'll send messages to the nervous system to move this muscle and to do that. And
right. I'm just thinking that even the brain recognizing that there's red and green lights.
Yeah.
You can interpret that in two different ways, because red and green lights on fairy lights is one thing. Red and green lights at a traffic stop is another thing.
Yeah.
And there's a story behind each of those that you have to recognize, that the individual has to follow. Otherwise, there would be no differentiation between anything. But you're saying that differentiation is being done by no one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So the brain can learn, Of course, apparently. Seems
Okay.
good. But there's just no one doing that. There's no consciousness as doing that.
Okay.
It's just an apparent functioning.
Yeah, it feels like it takes the luster out of life.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see a beautiful lady, or I don't know, doesn't matter, you're attracted to somebody, and
Mm.
if you just think that there is no one here and no one there, it's
The problem for the person or the mind, really, the problem for the mind when hearing this is it imagines it as a negativism of some kind, because really the mind can only see, in that kind of duality, and the mind lives in duality where something is either good or it is bad, something is true or it is bullshit. So it's constantly in a way trying to work something out, and in a way as to that's the part of the energetic claiming, in a way, how does this apply to me? How do I apply this to myself, apparently? So it will see this when we say it's no thing, or that this is empty, there's no one in here. It sees that as a negativism of some kind.
right. But it seems kind of clunky that we're using duality to express the non-dual. It feels kind of clunky that this is a resonance, but we're trying to express the resonance through words which are good, bad, black, white, and
I think that is an issue with the message. Maybe when Elon Musk brings out his brain microchip, we'll just be able to just plug USBs into each other, and we won't have to talk.
All right. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Ethan. Question: can bouts of laughter arise out of nowhere when listening to this message? Well, bouts of laughter always arise out of nothing. Well, they don't rise out of nothing. They are nothing, appearing as bouts of laughter. I had this experience when I listened to Jim Newman for the first time. Yeah, that's just what's happening. Neil, why don't you hold your own Zoom talks like Tony, Jim, and Andres? I suspect I will be at some point in the near future. Is it possible to waste one's life? No, because no one already has a life. And another question: what is the purpose of life? Life doesn't have a purpose. It's not actually going anywhere. There is just aliveness naturally happening, which has no meaning or purpose. And that's the freedom. See, meaning, purpose, importance, all of these things are about a relationship to something. This has meaning. Meaning is the relationship to something. Purpose, this has purpose, is the relationship to something. There's nothing as living in relation to something else, because all there is no thing. So this doesn't need to have a relationship with itself. It doesn't need purpose. It doesn't need purpose. Life doesn't need purpose to be alive. It already is alive, already without purpose. Go, William.
This is just getting more and more confronting for me now when you're saying it's not, life doesn't need a purpose to be. But the question I was going to ask is, does all of the sort of tension and stress and anxiety of the person, that kind of neurotic stress, come from the sense of personal responsibility? I've got to do it. I've got to get it right. If I do it well, it means I'm a good, all that stuff.
Well, it comes from the experience that the person is real. All that other stuff is just noise that you're talking about. It's just background noise.
There's an experience that I'm real, and then there's a
That's
neurotic.
the complication. That seems to be the complication. That I am.
And then because I'm real, I need to make my life work, and everything has to go perfectly, and I need to make more of the good things happen and get rid of all the bad things.
Yeah, that's all of that goes on with that. But the problem for the individual is it thinks that it is an individual, or that there is an individual.
And so the only apparent difference between here and there is that there's not that experience of being a real person with responsibility and all the other stuff.
So yes, so to speak. I would say that that's not actually happening there, but I understand that there is an apparent experience that that's happening.
And would you say that that's a huge difference when that whole pressure falls away?
Yeah, again, back to the headache metaphor. Yeah. Who wants a headache?
I mean, I've asked this possibly to you and so many speakers, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it seems impossible that nothing brought about the end of that apparent sense of being a person.
Well,
I think
there can't be anything to bring about the end of something that's not actually happening.
But it feels so real.
Yeah, I know.
You can't give anything that's gonna give the individual any hope or help.
Well, because there isn't an individual.
So what is the individual? Just nothing appearing as an individual.
It's an illusion that there is an illusion.
And there isn't anyone who knows about the illusion. It's only the illusion that experiences itself as something.
In a way, yes. Yeah.
So what is the benefit of this message?
No, there's no benefit to this message whatsoever, other than it's quite fun.
That's a benefit for you. No, I like it too. I'm just desperately trying to get something out of it. And I know it's futile, but I can't help trying to grasp something out of this. Like, there's got to be something like, give me something. It's neurotic, but yeah, seems to be.
Yeah, and there's no one to give it to.
And the individual will never hear that there isn't.
Oh, well, no, it can't hear that. Although I would say that on some level, in a way, that can be heard energetically, which the individual definitely does not want.
No. Okay, thanks.
And Eugene has his hand up again. Hi, Lee. Eugene, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hello. So the question.
I can see you.
Yeah, I was sweating and topless and on my exercise bike.
Oh, well, I'm glad you switched your camera off then.
Yeah, it's for your benefit.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
For everyone's benefit. We actually want this to go on YouTube. We don't want to get down.
Exactly. I'm self-conscious even having my picture taken.
Okay. Sorry, what's your question?
Okay. So the illusion is that there is a me. So isn't it also illusion that the me will disappear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
A-star.
I'm stumped. So looking for that relief, there's no real point to looking for that relief.
No.
So even if I'm neurotic and seeking, that's okay as it is, even though.
Of course. Of course. So seeking is the perfect expression of wholeness. Seeking for itself.
So when you say that there's energy, is there different energy, or is there just energy? And a lot of speakers say resonate, but
Yeah.
for something to resonate, it's like a guitar string. There has to be a guitar string to pluck.
Something to pluck it. Yeah.
So that implies a difference to me.
Yeah. Well, all I would say to that is no one resonates. It is the absolute appearing to resonate with itself without being plucked. How about that? Isn't that amazing?
Not really. Okay.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to disappoint in that case.
I know. I'm always disappointed at the end of these meetings.
Oh, yeah.
But I still show up.
Well, you're not showing up, and of course, you're not choosing to listen to this message. If there is a resonance with this, then there's just a resonance with this, and it's not because you're being plucked.
Okay. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Eugene. Where are we with the questions? Is this a remix of emptiness? A remix of emptiness? What, like Fatboy Slim remix? No, it's just emptiness appearing to be everything. Everything is empty. Do past lives exist? Well, there's no life, so there's no past life. It's a nice idea, isn't it? In the East, they say the purpose is to stop the infinite cycle of repeated births and deaths, as life is suffering and limited. Yeah, so karma, you're talking about karma, I think, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's just a story. May will tell itself all kinds of stories in order to perpetuate the experience of itself. And what I would say about that also is there is no birth and death. No one has ever been born, and there is no one to die. And everything is already what's longed for. It's inescapable. What's longed for is inescapable. We were never cast out of the garden. There's never anyone to suffer. And life is limitless. Apparent life is limitless. And another question, is anything real? No. This is neither real nor is it unreal. Is there desire after enlightenment? Well, there might be a desire for some Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream. Sometimes. But desire for what's longed for, as in the answer to the dilemma or the problem that the individual experiences, the answer to separation, then no, of course not, because there's no separation. And is there desire after enlightenment? I'm not enlightened. Hi mate, any news on a date for Birmingham yet? Not yet. I don't know if you mean my meeting or the meeting we're thinking of doing with Jim and Rita in there. But neither have a date yet, so that's easily answered. Are fear and desire connected? Does fear end after enlightenment? I'm not really sure what you mean as the fear and desire connected. I would say there is nothing as being connected to anything else. There is just the whole, which is doesn't need to be connected. So there is no thing as being connected to something else, or has connection to something else, or has any kind of correlation or indeed relation to something else. There is just the whole appearing. Does fear end after enlightenment? So again, there's that word. Does fear end after the me experiences or after the experience of separation? No, there can still be fear, but it's not a fear about what's going to happen tomorrow necessarily. It's not a projected fear into the future necessarily. There can be fear as a response to something, which scientists will tell you is in the back part of the reptilian brain, a fear response, which is in us from when we used to run away from saber-toothed tigers and that kind of thing. Yeah, that still apparently happens. Hi Neil, it seems all the words and concepts are so superficial and are totally not making any sense. Basically, it's all about resonance, which is there or isn't. Is it like that? Yeah, I think that so the seeker would say so, yes. I mean, certainly when I was a seeker, what compelled me to this message was the resonance. That something was an energetic resonance to this message. It couldn't possibly be the words, because it makes no sense whatsoever for the person to be attracted to a manner of speaking which is saying you can't get it, it's hopeless. Who wants to listen to that? No one in their right mind. So it's very much about an energetic resonance in a way, but that's not an intention and that's not a method. It just seems to be that there can be a resonance when this message is heard. And that's no indication of anything, any other possibility of something happening. That's just what is apparently happening if there's a resonance with this message. And all the words and concepts are superficial. Totally, yeah, absolutely. And don't make any sense. No, of course not. Is all fear the fear of death? In a way, I think it's, well, death is the ultimate unknowing. And I think what the individual fears the most is not knowing. So in some ways, we could say this, again, this is another story. You could say that human beings seem to be aware, so to speak, of death in a way, which seems like a huge unknowing, which is why there's books like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and there's life after death, stories about life after death and karma and all of those kinds of things that someone was asking about earlier. It's the most unthinkable thing for the individual to not be able to know what's going to happen when it dies. So yes, that would be, for the individual, for the person, that would be a fear. Yeah. And you're asking again what my sun sign is. I have no idea what a sun sign is. I know I've heard of a star sign. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. I have no idea what a sun sign is. Hi Neil, it seems like all the words and concepts are so oh, I read that one already. It's hopeless. It's not pleasant at all. I always a seeker, that it was like back to square one until I came to this message. Well, this message is hopeless. It is hopeless. It seems the contraction in the body triggers the thinking process automatically. Is that why me or unwanted thoughts appear? read that one again. It seems that contracting triggers the thinking process automatically. Is that why me or unwanted thoughts appear? Well, no, the contraction doesn't trigger the thinking process, so to speak. Thinking just happens, naturally happens. But it could be that thinking, so thoughts are kind of like a report. They're just kind of a report on what's appearing in a way. So if there is an experience to be someone or to be a person who is having to find ways to live in relation to this, then there would be thoughts about that experience, or there would be a reporting on that experience and how that feels. But it's not the cause of thoughts. There would just be thoughts reporting on that experience of what it is to apparently be a separate individual. And is that why me or unwanted thoughts appear? Well, when there is an apparent me, then it sort of seems to have a filing system in a way. This is again another story for thoughts, and it wants to sort of organize thoughts into these are good thoughts and bad thoughts. And I like thinking like I like these thoughts, they make me feel good. I don't like these thoughts, they make me feel bad. And so that's not as to why the me appears, the contracted energy in the body, because there actually isn't a why. If there was a why for the appearing of the me, then there would be some way out. If you could work out why the me appears, then you could kind of work out how to undo it. Moving on, my favorite interview is with you and Emerson. Did he ever send you the certificate of enlightenment? No, because I'm not enlightened yet. Neil, have you met Jim Newman in person? Yes, he's huge. He's humongous. Neil, I'd like to host speakers at my flat. Are you open to being hosted? I'm in the Midlands. Yeah. You can find me at the moment on Facebook, Already Everything. And you'll find my email there. If you want to send me an email, then by all means do, and we can speak. Yeah. If nothing is real, have you ever stopped eating food for a week? I stopped eating food for about 4 days recently because I had to. The sun sign is the same as the star sign. Oh, okay. I'm a Taurus, I think. The sun is a star. Oh, yes, of course. Okay, thank you. How do I open my third eye chakra? You can't. So I used to do all sorts of meditations about opening chakras and doing all of that kind of thing. And if ever there was some kind of sensation or felt experience of opening a third eye chakra, it was always temporary. It's just stuff that the individual seems to do in the dream. And that's with an intention to make this a better experience. If I learn how to open my third eye chakra, I'll receive more love and wisdom from the universe. And then I'll have a better experience. That's just a part of the dream. William.
So there's no experience of time passing, because we've been in a meeting now for almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't report on any experience of time passing.
No, there's no one having an experience of any kind. It's just what's apparently happening.
So why does time seem like something real that is moving from one thing to the next to the individual?
Well, time isn't unreal. Time is really just apparent. But as we were talking about earlier, when there is an I, then because it experiences itself as something real, and everything that seems to arise, including time, seems to arise within the consciousness of I, or the awareness of I, which is duality, it then makes that into a something real also. So it makes time into something as being real. But I'm sure most people here could describe a noticing of where time seems to have gone really quickly, or time's going really slowly, or time seems to have passed, and all of a sudden it's 2 hours later.
Yeah.
So even as a concept, you can kind of get a feel for, time is more malleable than we might think. There was
It
a
just
very
seems
clever Austrian bloke who wrote a bit about it. I think he was Austrian anyway.
it just seems to cause a lot of suffering, in the sense that there's a real future I'm moving into where things could be better. There's a real past where things were not good. And this whole idea of moving through time, I think it seems to create a lot of problems for the individual.
Yeah, and in a way, it's kind of the prison. The individual is kind of crucified in time, in a way. That's not the best metaphor.
Jim said something similar to me the other day. It doesn't matter. He just came up with an analogy, but he said, yeah, something about crucifixion, and he just came up with the analogy like Jesus was crucified on the cross, and it's like the vertical pole is just this up and down, and then the horizontal on the cross is time, and so the person's crucified in time. Yeah,
I think there are some old Gnostic gospels that talk in that way, that use sort of mathematics and geometry.
So when the sense of self drops, time doesn't drop out of the appearance. It's just there's no sense of it being a real.
It has no reality. Just becomes another thing that has apparent thing that has no reality. It's complete. This is completely timeless. It's not actually moving at all.
So as much as that body can function in time, like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm doing a meeting, or it's
The
such
body
and such.
doesn't need to function in time. That's the thing. It only seems to be the apparent individual that needs to function in time, or real time.
Would you say it needs real time because that's the hope of fulfillment? It needs a real.
But I would say it's back to this. The individual kind of makes everything real. That everything has its own reality, and in that everything having an actual reality, everything just seems to be just fixed and dead. It's just complete chaos as appearing orders.
I can't help but think you are seeing something that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, but in the end, there's no one to see what timelessness is like. Timelessness is already the natural reality. There's just apparently an experience there saying, no, I live in real time line.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, William. I'm going to go for about another 5 to 10 minutes, guys, I think, really, just sort of depending on what comes through. Neil, do you have a goggle site? Not yet, but I'm working on one. I use that once a week or so. Again, not yet, but we're working on it. Is there a continual deepening after the shift, despite there no longer being any identification? Apparently there is, yeah. Seems to me, yeah. I can't tell you anything about that, not because it's a secret, but just can't say anything about that. Yes, it appears to deepen. Okay, thank you very much. And are you going to have a virtual retreat soon? like Tony and Jim, that would be very much appreciated. Yes, there's whispers. Yeah, there's whispers. Yeah. My favorite books. Okay, do you know what? I haven't read a book in ages. I used to read lots of really complicated books. Actually, no, I did. The last book I read was it was a Terry Pratchett book. Can't remember which one. One about death. Death becoming a farmer or something. I can't remember exactly. Okay. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you for coming along. Thank you to all those who
Thank you so
asked
much.
questions.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank
Nice to see everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
you.
Thanks.
Everyone can unmute yourself and say bye, Neil.
Bye.
Bye, Neil.
Bye, Neil.
See you later.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you,
Bye.
Neil.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emerson.